Dakota Natural Health Center. We are continuing our 5R series discussing the different ways that you can help with repairing and restoring your gastrointestinal function. Digestive dysfunction is one of the top reasons that I think people come into the pharmacy looking for supplemental supports. Definitely one of the reasons that we see a lot of people scheduling appointments here on the health center side to help us, to help people straighten out what's going on with their digestive tract. So far we've been through, I guess this is our number 4, right? We've been through the first 3. We're moving into the 4th R, which is for reinoculate or replenish. So now we're talking specifically about probiotics. And we're kind of missing Kevin this week because this is one of his favorite things to talk about, but I'm going to do my best. Maybe we'll have him pitch something in later. So we started an experiment yesterday where we took some milk and then we added 2 different kinds of probiotics, one on one side, one on the other. So to give you more of the specifics, we used a pretty high potency probiotic on one side, and then on the other side we used a much lower potency and a product that was actually like right at its expiration date. Now the results aren't quite as miraculous as what you can find if you go on YouTube or whatnot, but it's still kind of worth talking about or showing. So I'm going to point that out first. So the one in the middle, and this might be hard to see, so I'm just going to try to talk about it. This is just the regular milk. We didn't put anything in this, so I don't know how well you can see that, but there's really not much happening. It still looks like regular milk. On this side, this is where we use the high potency probiotic, and really what you can see is it's a little bit thicker and you have some colony formations happening here, so there's a lot of just like thicker white chunks kind of sticking to the cup, especially when I swirl it around. So there's been some growth and some fermentation happening over here. And then on this side, this was the lower potency and the nearly expired product. And if you look really close, and again, if you were here, it'd be easier, but you get just a little bit of colony formation as well. But I would say, this is obviously none, a little bit, and significantly more. So I think if we were to, maybe we'll just leave it over the weekend. That might be kind of interesting. We'll leave it over the weekend and see what happens if we give these little bugs some more time to digest. So that's what we're seeing so far. That's probably a good segue into talking about probiotic quality, like how to choose a probiotic. There are hundreds of probiotics. It's not possible for me to try to give you specifics. There definitely are products that are made for specific purposes. There are some to help with upper respiratory tract issues, like if you have recurrent sinus and upper respiratory infections. There's a lot that help to manage digestive issues. There's some for skin issues. There's some for autoimmune issues, especially autoimmunity that affects the intestinal tract. There's some to help with improving lung function. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal what we've done with probiotics anymore. So I can't get super specific because it is going to vary based on the trying to manage. Oh, did you? Sorry. Accident. That's what we do when we do live videos. So sorry. Everybody say hi to Alicia. She's dying now. Yeah, probiotics. So just some basics in general. If there's a concern about quality, meaning you don't know a whole lot about the company or the product in general, then get one that's refrigerated. That's just kind of a safeguard to ensure that, it is. It's just a safeguard to help with potency, so that if it says there's 50 billion colony forming units, there's more likely to be 50 billion colony forming units. A lot of these companies have a lot of research behind their products, and that shouldn't be that hard to find. Many of them are also strain specific, so different strains of probiotics. So when we talk about lactobacillus, there's a bunch of different strains of lactobacillus. Bifidobacter is the other one. There's a lot of different strains of Bifidobacter. So Saccharomyces and etc. So the good bugs that we tend to be looking for. So you can look at, if you're a research person, you can go to these companies, either to their websites or just contact them directly and ask if they have something that validates the effectiveness of their product. Another note then, if you're choosing a probiotic and it's more so for general health, then you might go broad spectrum. So you might look at the back of the bottle and see somewhere like 6 to 12 different types of probiotics listed. You don't have to know what they all are, but look for more of a variety of organisms present. That differs, though, if you're looking for something, let's say a woman looking for something specific to vaginal health. You might want something that's only got 1 or 2 strains, but in higher potencies. So it is kind of nice to be able to tailor to the person. But generally speaking, if you're not sure, go refrigerated. Broad spectrum, so multiple organisms present. And then you can talk to somebody too. We've got people around here that are pretty well versed in probiotics. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if it's $13 and the other ones that you're looking at are $30-something, but the $13 one says it's just as good, I would question that. So again, not everything has to be super expensive, but you do, in the supplement world, you tend to get what you pay for. So those are some things about choosing probiotics. Some things that deplete probiotics. Stress is major at killing off your probiotics. And that's not just necessarily being stressed out in your head. Physical stress, like illness, a lot of exercise, so really highly regimented exercise routine can deplete probiotics or good bacteria in the gut. The stress of making poor food choices or just chronically consuming foods that are not adequate or aren't actually contributing, they're just sort of taking away from you. And then of course antibiotics. Antibiotics are going to eliminate a lot of your good bacteria. That's in those cases, I mean, we do have probiotic doses that go up really high. And that's, not a bad, it's a pretty good time to choose those, especially if you tend to be one of those people, women in general, who say, well, every time I have to take an antibiotic, I end up with a yeast infection. Taking probiotics can help with that. So those are some things that help, that kind of break down the probiotics or the good bacteria that you already have. From a diet perspective, we do talk about, obviously probiotics in capsules are easy, so that's a preference for a lot of people. But in your diet, you can certainly garden fresh vegetables that you might rinse them off, but you don't scrub them to death, because we do have good probiotics in the soil. Fermented foods, so you've heard of like kombucha or kefir, or fermenting your own vegetables, or kimchi if you're a spicy person. So there's a lot of ways to get good probiotics in your foods as well. And then, the other part of that then would be to make sure that you're consuming adequate fiber, and especially fiber because of how it acts as a prebiotic. So it's kind of a fuel source for those probiotics that you're consuming as well. Let me see here. Anything you can throw in, Alicia? What else are we going to mention? Oh, basics about dosing too, I wanted to mention. So, because of course you can get probiotics that are as little as 1 billion colony forming units, anywhere up to like 100 billion colony forming units. Absolute minimum, if we're just talking general health, absolute minimum is 8 billion per day. Probably want to go higher than that. But, if you're going for just the bare minimum, at least 8 billion units a day, going up from there depending on what the issue is. What else am I missing? I don't have a really good list this time, but I think we're doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. So let's just do the usual. If you have questions, if we left some gaps in this, if you have more interest in knowing more about probiotics, please post those or send those to us, because I do think that when Kevin gets back, he'd be interested in being able to contribute to this conversation too. So thank you for tuning in, and we are doing one more next Friday. We've got one more R to cover, and starting now in April here at Dakota Natural Health Center, we are hosting kind of a group spring cleanup, and it's a Facebook group, and that's exactly what it's called, right? DNHC Spring Cleanup. Yep. You can search and add yourself to that group, where we're going to talk through a little bit more of the specifics of how do you go about implementing, a clean whole foods diet. What can you do to make your lifestyle, your household cleaners, your just different areas of your life, get them up to par and clean, and then move forward, through spring together. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Bye.